Hey, what's up, everyone? Cyclops from Paramount Cyclops here. You know, everybody needs a little bit of help sometimes. And it's okay to admit that we need help, especially in hard times. I myself have needed help frequently throughout my life. I've been on food stamps and things of that nature. As soon as I was at a point where I didn't need them, I went and I had them cancel it, and they didn't even want to cancel them, but I told them I didn't need it. I didn't need the help. I like being self-sufficient. I like being on my own 2 feet. I came from a position where I needed the help. I got the help I needed, and it got me to a better position. I used it for what it was meant for, a stepping stone to get out of where I was. Well, we all need a little bit of help in this really bad time, and that is an excellent question. What is the status of a second $1,200 stimulus check? Now, personally, I had thought about it, and I really don't need a stimulus check, so if they do give me a stimulus check, I'm going to give it away on my channel. I will divide it into $300 portions and find a way to give it away to deserving subscribers on my channel. So stay tuned for that. You may be eligible to win it. But let's move on. This is from CBS News, by the way. Hopes for another large round of federal assistance for Americans hurt by the pandemic are reviving, with President-elect Joe Biden calling on Congress to come together and pass a pandemic relief package. With many pandemic aid programs running out of funding or set to expire in December, many laid-off workers, small businesses, and others face the prospect of more financial hardship without further government help. And they do. And a lot of people are going to be blindsided when all the bills that they've been putting off that they believe that they don't have to pay, that's not the way it works. You're putting off your rent and you're saying you can't pay your rent due to the pandemic hardships. The moratorium forces the landlords to accept that, but it's not that you're not paying rent. It's that when this ends, your next few months are going to be very expensive because you got to pay your rent plus portions of the rent that you missed until it's paid off. Boy, isn't that going to be fun. Although many analysts expect lawmakers to eventually set aside their partisan differences, we'll see if that happens, and pass another stimulus bill, the size and timing of a measure remain uncertain. And that's the problem. It remains uncertain. You can't plan, and having an uncertain future is sometimes even worse than knowing that you have a hardship coming up. Not knowing, how do you plan? How do you adjust? Now, rather than having just one plan, now you have to have backup plans and backup plans. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell has signaled that he backs another stimulus package, noting in a November 4th press conference that he would like an aid deal passed before year end, as would everybody else, I'm sure. Even so, any package passed during the so-called lame duck session before the newly elected members of Senate and House take their seats in January, along with Mr. Biden, is likely to be far smaller than the more than $2 trillion sought by Democrats, according to Wall Street analysts. And I agree, it's probably going to be less, but we can maximize that. We can say, look, if you really don't need this stimulus check and you're working, then maybe you don't need the stimulus check. I don't need the stimulus check. I'm in a position, thank God, that's amazing to me that I don't need the stimulus check, which is why I believe I should pass it on. If I get a stimulus check, I'm going to give it off to you guys in some manner or form. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. Coming from homelessness, it's a hell of a thing for me to say. It wasn't even that long ago that I was eating out of dumpsters and wondering if I was going to starve to death or die of exposure or get hurt or deleted out in the streets. Because it's a rough life. And I understand. which is why I say I don't need the stimulus packet, and I'd like to pass it on if they give me one. So we will see. McConnell will likely re-propose a plan he pushed in October. The McConnell plan was for $500 billion and included additional Paycheck Protection Plan funds, noted Brian Gardner, Chief Washington Policy Strategist at Stifel, in a research note. $500 billion doesn't even sound like it would scratch the surface. Not unless you are only giving cash to the absolute lower brackets, the absolute lower tax brackets. Then maybe $500 billion would be enough. Maybe. But I kind of doubt that. Republicans may push for a smaller package given Pfizer's announcement earlier this month that its human trial suggests its coronavirus vaccine is 90% effective at preventing the pandemic infections. Gardner added, see, I'm shaking my head because I accidentally slipped up and said the C word, and so now I'm worried about this video, but who cares? We'll just get the news out there. Gardner added, and on Monday, Moderna said its vaccine is 94.5% effective. Yes, according to preliminary data from the company's ongoing study. The difference between the two vaccines is this. Pfizer's needs to be held at a negative 94 degrees, which is pretty difficult and pretty expensive, and it's going to make it very difficult for that particular vaccine to be held out in smaller areas, rural counties, things like that. Logistically, now you've got to have a way to store it. You've got to have a way to transport it out there. Moderna's vaccine, however, can be held in a fridge, which makes it more viable, in my opinion. But for some reason, we're pushing for Pfizer's rather than Moderna's more, even though Moderna's seems more viable. It's easier to transport. It's less expensive. Pfizer's is fine in big cities where you have that kind of equipment. But, I mean, come on now. There's not going to be very many small towns that have the equipment to hold a vaccine at negative 94 degrees. That's literally my field of expertise. It's what I'm a professional in, thermodynamics. And yeah, it takes a lot of energy to keep it that cold. So it's not as viable. But for some reason, we're pushing for Pfizer's. Why? Dollar bills, y'all. I'll almost guarantee it. The availability of a vaccine would significantly boost hiring, incomes, and other measures of economic growth, reducing the need for a massive stimulus bill, some GOP lawmakers contend. However, all this is up in the air. We don't know. That's the thing. We don't know. It would be nice to have, like, an actual no. Now, Walmart says stimulus is imperative. Gee, of course. They want people to have more money. And it's a compound thing. As selfish as Walmart is to have more people, to have more money, to spend more money in more of their stores, so too is the economy of the United States selfish, and the economy wants more people to spend more money in more stores. So, Walmart's sentiment is repeated by the nation. Isn't that funny? Money makes the world go round. Boy, have we just stifled ourselves into needing money. And I'm no better. According to experts, widespread distribution of an effective vaccine would reinvigorate parts of the economy that have been hard hit by the pandemic. But there are still some industries that have been hit so hard they will never recover. 86% of restaurants that have shut down during this pandemic will never reopen. The only winners in the restaurant business in this pandemic are the big box chains. They've made out like bandits because with all the smaller restaurants closing, there's less options for people to go to, which is funneling them to their businesses. So these big businesses are loving it. Trust me. I know the numbers. These businesses love it. I know for a fact. It's crazy. But such a rollout could take months, leaving millions of consumers and businesses hanging without help from additional government funding. Already there are signs that consumers may be pairing spending as the surge in COVID pandemic cases saps their confidence in an economic rebound. Paired with a lack of fresh stimulus spending from Washington, D.C., retail sales in the U.S. drew to a near halt in October, according to Oxford Economics senior U.S. economist James Watson, citing data from the U.S. Commerce Department released on Tuesday. And it's funny because you go to these stores here, I don't know where you are, but here in New Mexico, Walmarts are closing left and right. Grocery stores are closing left and right. Mom and pop shops, oh, they're just, what mom and pop shops? You've got your choices of big box chain A or big box chain B, and that's about it. And the lines are crazy. There's a big box chain right across the place from me. And especially in the evening, drive-throughs open, and those cars, they go from there, from the building, down the street, to the light, up the major street, which is a major street, up the right side road of the major street, because the restaurant's a right-hand turn, all the way up the block to the next light, and constant. And they're almost all like that. And here's another thing. All you environmentalists out there, what do you think all these people sitting in their drive-thrus, running their cars because it's cold, is doing to the environment? Do you think it's adding to it? I don't know. Smarter minds will prevail on that one, but my thinking is you drive to a restaurant, you shut your car off, you go in, you order your food, you sit down, you eat. You're not causing as much pollution as if you go to a restaurant, you sit in the drive-thru with your car running for 30, 40, 45 minutes, an hour and a half, whatever. You know, some restaurants are quick, some are not. Interesting. Walmart CEO Doug McMillon on Tuesday said it is imperative that lawmakers come together to pass another round of stimulus. The increase in cases will put more pressure on small businesses that have been heavily impacted by the pandemic, McMillan said in a conference call with analysts. But $1,200 checks? Probably not. This idea here, that extra $600 in weekly supplement unemployment aid, my personal opinion, this sentiment right here was true. It disincentivized people to work. And it sure made me feel like a jackass for working. Because here I was working, putting my life literally on the line. Putting my body literally on the line because it's not really about the money. I don't really need the money at this point. I have other venues of income coming in now, finally. That have taken me years to cultivate, but they have finally recently come to fruition. But, my God, here I was, and people were sitting at home making as much as I was, or in some cases more. And I knew for a fact, because some of them I personally knew and talked to and whatnot, that they truly were gaming the system. I couldn't fault their logic. The government is presenting you on a platter this position where you can sit at home and get your $200 a week from unemployment plus $600, so you're making $800. So you're making $1,600 every 2 weeks. You're making $3,200 a month. For New Mexico, it's not bad. And people didn't want to go to work. And people were coming up with creative ways. Boss would call and say, do you want to come to work? Now, if you're offered to come back to work and you deny it, then you can get cut off unemployment. So people would say yes, but only as long as, and they would come up with a list of demands that no company could possibly meet. And therefore, it wasn't their fault, and they could keep collecting. Not everybody was doing it, but I do personally know of people who did, because I spoke to them and they fully admitted it. I couldn't fault their logic, though. It was presented to them on a silver platter. They were smarter and more cunning than I was. But Republicans and Democrats have signaled agreement on a handful of issues, such as replenishing the Paycheck Protection Program and to provide another round of stimulus funding for low and middle income families. The first round of stimulus checks provide up to $1,200 for single taxpayers and up to $2,400 for married couples, as well as $500 for most children. Let me see if it goes through. While it's likely that families will see another round of stimulus checks, don't count on receiving them until early 2021, according to analysts. That'd be after the Well, supposedly after the vaccines roll out. But every time we think we have a vaccine, they say it's coming out this date, then there comes things that bear into question. But is it? And then who they're going to give it to keeps changing. So, and then distribution, like, yeah. Everything's so up in the air. It's a hard time to live. It's a hard time to report the news because there's so many different aspects, so many different opinions, and everybody's so adamant that they're right, and other people are repeating that. And you run into this thing where some people are repeating the wrong information so many times that it becomes the right information. See what I'm saying? While it's likely that families will see another round of stimulus checks, don't count on them and seeing them until early 2021. Yeah. We see our current baseline assumption of roughly $750 billion fiscal package legislated by the first quarter of 2021 as reasonable, noted Deutsche Bank analysts in a Friday research note. Well, let's hope we get help. And I actually hope that I get the $1,200 stimulus check because I would love to give it to someone more deserving than you guys. People who need it a little more than I do. So stay tuned and let's hope that happens. But I'm on a race to get to 2,000 subscribers, so help me out with a like, a comment, a share, a subscribe. I hope I have informed you and maybe in some way entertained you or opened your eyes. And if I have, then engagement with this video would be greatly appreciated. I love you guys, and I will see you on the next one.